Hello, students. Welcome back to Chapter 6, The Three Orders. So, last class, I told you that in France, the French priest, they believed in the concept that people were members of one of the three orders. Okay. So, depending on their work, they were divided into they belonged to one of the three orders. So, there was one quote also that I shared with you in the last class, that is, here below, some pray, others fight, and still others work. So the three orders of the society, they were broadly classified as the clergy, the people who prayed, the nobility, the people who fought, and the peasantry, the people who worked. Okay. In the 12th century, Abbess Hildegard of Bingen, he wrote, who would think of herding his entire cattle in one stable? Cows, donkeys, sheep, goats, without any difference? Would you keep all these cattle in just one stable? Therefore, it is necessary to establish difference among human beings so that they do not destroy each other. God makes distinctions amongst his flocks in heaven as on earth. All are loved by him, yet there is no equality among them. Very, very deep this is, isn't it? Distinctions among, we should differentiate between human beings so that they do not destroy each other. At the same time, he's saying that God himself has made distinctions among the people and he loves all of them equally, but there is no equality amongst them. Okay. Now, we will look at the first order of this, that is the clergy. The Catholic Church, they had their own laws. They owned the lands given to it by the rulers. And they could, and then I'm very sure they did, they levied taxes on people. It was thus a very powerful institution and it did not depend on the king. At the end of the Western Church, there was the Pope. As the head of the Western Church, there was the Pope. He lived in Rome. The Christians in Europe, they were guided by the bishops and the clerks who constituted the first order. The Christians in Europe, they were guided by the bishop and clerics who formed the first order. The bishops and the clerics, they formed the first order. Most villages had their own churches at those times, and people assembled here every Sunday to listen to the sermon by the priest, and they would all pray together. Now, everyone could not become a priest. Serfs were banned, as were the physically challenged. So there were people not everyone was allowed to become a priest. So see, serfs were banned from becoming a priest. Physically challenged people could not become a priest. Women could not become a priest. Men who became the priest, they could not marry. So these were the rules that you had to follow if you were to become a priest. Bishops were the religious nobility. So like the landlords who owned vast landed estates, the bishops, they could also use the vast estates and they also lived in grand palaces. the church was entitled to 1/10 share of whatever the peasants used to produce. Okay, so throughout the year, whatever the peasant would produce, okay, 1/10 of it was given to the church, because the church was entitled to 1/10 of the share. If you remember, even in Islamic lands we had done, there was a tax where the peasants had to give a part of their produce depending from 1/5 to 50%. Yes, like that over here it's called teeth. Okay, in the clergy world it was called the teeth. That is a tax levied by the church on the peasants, which was 1/10 of their produce of the entire year. Okay, now they also got money. Money also came in form of endowments, which was made by rich for their own welfare and welfare of the deceased relatives in the afterlife. So these clergy, they would also get money from rich people for welfare of the society or welfare of themselves. And sometimes, like after the death, like even nowadays we see, after the death we do these pujas and we do so many other charities and all in the names of the people who are dead. uh, Reasons may be different, but I feel the motive is the same, to make their afterlife uh, relatively easy, or for welfare of the afterlife after death. So for all this, the rich people used to give money also to the clergy. Some of the important ceremonies conducted by the church copied formal customs of the feudal elite. The acts like kneeling down while praying, the hands clasped, head bowed. It was an exact replica in which a knight conducted himself while taking the vows of loyalty to his lord. So when you became a knight, you had to take some vows in front of the lord, in front of the king. And in the same exact posture, the same gestures, people used to pray. The way a knight would bow down in front of his lord on his knees, hands clasped, head bowed down, to take the vows to become a knight. Same posture, same gestures is what people used to uh, carry out while praying to the god. So even people would kneel down, they would clasp their hands, bow their heads, and then they would say the prayers. Similarly, the use of the term Lord for God is another example of the feudal culture that found its way into the practices of the church. Okay, another feudal culture that was uh, uh, copied or imitated was calling the god the Lord. Okay, so thus the religious and the lay of worlds of feudalism, they shared many customs and symbols. So this can come as a question, that what are the important ceremonies that were conducted by the church that seem to have come from the feudal system, or they had copied formal customs of the feudal system, or how are the customs and symbols of the feudal system and church similar. So these were the two things. One is the act of praying, and the second is the use of the term Lord. Okay. Now, 4th century onwards, Christmas and Easter started to be celebrated. Sunday became an official holiday because everyone would go to the church to listen to the sermon by the priest, and pilgrimages had started. Peasants welcomed the holy days. See, look at the difference. Holidays is actually holy days. We're supposed to sit home and pray because they were not expected to work then, but you were expected to pray. And what has holidays become now? From holy days, they've now become holidays. Yes? Apart from the church, devout Christians had another kind of an organization. there were some deeply religious people who chose to live isolated lives, in contrast to the clerics who lived amongst people in town and villages. They lived in religious communities called abbeys or monasteries, often in places far away from human habitalization. So now there were monks, which was a completely different institute, a completely different organization. This constituted of some people who had very deep religious values, and they lived in isolation. Okay, clerics, they lived amongst the people and in the middle of the town. But monks, they lived in isolation. They lived in religious communities, which were called abbeys. Okay, you can call them abbeys or you can call them monasteries. Okay, but often in places far away from human utilization. Two, two of the most well-known monasteries were those established by Saint Benedict in Italy in 529 and Cluny in Burgundy in 910. Okay, so these were the two most famous monasteries. Okay, so those were the two established and very well known monasteries, that is Benedict in Italy and Cluny in Burgundy. Now, monks, they took vows. Okay, these monks, they had taken vows to remain in the abbey, that is the religious community, for the rest of their lives and to spend their time in prayer, study, and manual labor like farming. So they had taken vow that we will only live in the religious communities and we are going to spend all our days, all our time praying, studying, and doing some sort of manual labor, which mostly in those days was agriculture. It was farming. So, unlike priesthood, this life was open to both men and women. So, if you remember in clergy, women could not become a clergy, they could not become a priest. But as a monk, men and women both could become. So, women would become nuns. They wouldn't become monks, but they could become nuns. Except in a few cases, all abbeys were single sex communities. That means that there were separate abbeys for men and there were separate abbeys for women. Okay. And just like the priests, monks and nuns did not marry. They did not marry. Okay. Now, from small communities of 10 or 20 men and women monasteries grew to communities of several hundreds. So initially these abbeys, they had only 10 or 20 monks or nuns in them. And slowly it grew and they started to have several hundreds. And so large buildings and landed estates with attached schools and colleges and hospitals were developed. They also started to contribute to the development of art. Okay, and that's again we come back to Abbes Hildegard, who was a gifted musician, and he did a lot to develop the practice of community singing and prayers in the churches. From the 13th century, some monk groups who were called friars, they chose not to be staying in the monastery. They decided not to be based in the monastery and they started to move from one place to another, preaching people and started to live on charity. Okay. Now, what I want you all to do as homework for today is I want you all to do research on the two famous monasteries of that time, that is Benedict in Italy and Cluny in Burgundy. I want you all to find pictures, stick it in your notebooks, and write some relevant fact about these two, 4 to 5 lines each. Okay, not a lot. All right. And please mention the meaning of the word monastery in both the passages below. So this is separate and your 4 to 5 lines are separate. All right. With this, we end today's class. We will continue with the first order and move on to the second order in the next class. So till then, stay home, stay safe, take care, and keep learning. Thank you.